gaming has a number of famous mysteries that have become the stuff of legends over the years. Super Mario Bros. Minus World, Lavender Town in Pokemon, or Bigfoot in GTA San Andreas. On this series I call Gaming Cold Case, I'm going to attempt to cover a number of lesser-known mysteries that have not been widely discussed and have kind of fallen through the cracks. For the first segment, I'm going to cover the lost cheerleader codes of NBA Jam. The arcade version of NBA Jam was released in 1993, and it was instantly a massive success. Players loved the over-the-top basketball action, and it helped popularize a less serious and more arcadey genre of sports games. There was a gas station across the street from my middle school that had an NBA Jam machine, and I certainly plugged in my share of quarters. One reason for the game's success was its abundance of secrets. These secrets included the now legendary Big Head mode, as well as codes to play as the game's developers. These codes consisted of entering the developer's initials and birthday at the start of the game. My favorite of these was lead developer Mark Turmel, who could be unlocked with the initials MJT and March 22nd for his birthday. Keep Mark Turmel in mind, as well as this code format, because it's going to be important later. Now, like all famous arcade games from the 90s, there were a lot of rumors floating around about additional secrets being hidden in the game. The most widespread rumor I remember from my middle school years was that there was supposedly a code to play as Barney the dinosaur. Now, this, of course, was untrue. But one thing I heard, and honestly I can't even remember where I first heard this, was that there were undiscovered codes to play as the cheerleaders. Now, I was always intrigued by this mystery because it seems surprising to me that there were still secrets in a game as popular as NBA Jam that have yet to be discovered. It also intrigued me that it didn't really seem widely known, and I hardly ever came across any information on this mystery. Over the years, it honestly seems like it was almost completely forgotten. Now, what I do remember hearing about it was that the codes were intentionally made more complex than other secret characters to hide them from the NBA who didn't want them in the game. This actually seemed believable, since NBA Jam's follow-up, NBA Jam Tournament Edition, had some secret characters like Sub-Zero and Raiden from Mortal Kombat and a weird monkey creature named Kong that were actually present in earlier versions of the game but were later removed at the NBA's behest. Now, the cheerleaders were actually mentioned in an FAQ from 1994 written by an author named Fast Eddie, and it seems like, at least at this early date, they were still a major source of speculation. So, to read from the FAQ, it said, there were 18 special guests in NBA Jam. There were plans for a lot more special guests, including Godzilla, Dennis Rodman of the Pistons, Jim Jackson of the Mavs, Raiden of Mortal Kombat. But to save memory and to make the game more challenging, the final cut was brought down to 18, 13 are made public. In this guide and in Video Games and Computer Entertainment August 1993, 5 did not wish to make their codes public, including Felicia Turmel, Lorraine Olivia, and Carrie Kendall Hoskins. Yes, 3 females. So elsewhere in the FAQ, the author goes on to say, please do not call Midway or VG and CE and ask for codes. They're trying to build interest in the game to keep from slipping in the polls. It's like when Mortal Kombat was out for a while, play was low, and Midway released the info about Reptile Man. Voila! Renewed interest. Part of the game is the process of discovering the female codes. It'd be no fun if you called Turmel and asked him, and 24 hours later, your neighbor's 9-year-old nephew knows the codes. So in the early days of NBA Jam, it looks like the cheerleaders were actually this hot topic. They were kind of a major point of speculation for hardcore fans, but over the years, the mystery has just kind of faded from memory. So who were the cheerleaders, and is there any evidence that they ever existed at all? Was this all just another crazy gaming rumor, like Mew being hidden under the truck? Well, to begin with, the cheerleaders were Playboy models Carrie Hoskins and Lorraine Olivia. They were seen on NBA Jam's opening a track screen just as kind of a bit of eye candy to draw people to the machine, and you could also see them in the top left part of the screen during a game, kind of cheering you on. And there actually is two substantial pieces of evidence that suggest the cheerleaders were actually playable at some point. The first of which comes from the August 1993 cover of Video Games and Computer Entertainment, which clearly shows a blonde female cheerleader being played. Looks like she's dunking on Charles Barkley there. This is clear gameplay footage that would suggest the cheerleaders were at least playable at some point in the game's development. The second piece of information comes from the beta version of the Super Nintendo port of the game. Now this ROM is pretty widely available on the net, so if you were to download it and allow the game to play its opening a track screen, you would soon see gameplay footage showing a blonde cheerleader as one of the characters. Now this footage, a track screen, was actually not present in the final version of the game. Now, like I said, this is a mystery that's always intrigued me, so once or twice a year, just whenever I happen to think about it, I would check Google to see if any progress has been made, if any news has come out, but there just really never was anything, so it really became the very definition of a gaming cold case. So I decided if this mystery was going to be solved, it was time to go to the man himself. The man, the myth, the legend, Mark Turmell. Mark Turmell, as NBA Jam's lead developer, has a reputation as one of the gaming industry's more celebrated figures. I think the fact that so many fans have fond memories of actually playing as him in NBA Jam, I'm sure adds to his mystique significantly. But I decided to reach out to him on Facebook to see if he could comment on this mystery. I wasn't seriously expecting a response, but he was extremely polite and forthcoming and more than willing to answer my questions on this topic. So, according to his response here, he said, "Unfortunately, the cheerleader codes for Carrie Hoskins and Olivia required a set of EP-ROMs that weren't widely distributed. We'd oftentimes update a game to fix a bad bug, and sometimes additional stuff would go out at the same time. Operators had a choice of spending $100 to swap out, but only about 5% did so. So they're out there, and I'm sure codes are published." So this response is interesting for a couple reasons. One, it tells us that the cheerleaders actually did exist, but they were only present in a very small portion of the arcades out there, since they required arcade owners to go out of their way to install a new ROM set that cost extra money and would be kind of a hassle for the owner to open up the machine and install. And second, Mark didn't seem to be aware that the cheerleader codes still have never been discovered. So I sent a follow-up to Mark asking if there's any truth to the old rumors that the codes to play as the cheerleaders were made more complex to kind of hide their existence from the NBA. Then I also sent him a link to a MAME hacking forum that had people trying to hack a arcade ROM of NBA Jam, trying to find vestiges of any lost characters, just as kind of proof that the codes for the cheerleaders still haven't been discovered. So Turmell replied, actually they used the same code mechanism, was initials and birthdays for the two Playboy bunnies we used, Carrie, Olivia. So basically we have to get EP-ROMs from when I added. It was not version 1.0 or 2.0, it was a few months post-launch on an update. So here, Turmell confirmed that they were actually looking at the wrong versions of this game on that forum, and that the cheerleaders used the standard initials and date of birth format that all other secret characters used. So, in the final analysis, what happened exactly? Why, after all these years, have the cheerleaders still not been discovered? Well, this is all speculation, but with Mark's responses, I think a pretty clear picture has actually emerged. What I think happened was that the cheerleaders run an update that was released fairly late in the game's life cycle, and it came out at a time that interest in the game was probably starting to die down. I imagine very few arcade owners took on the extra expense and hassle of installing the update, and considering that after all these years, the only versions of the game that are known to exist are 1.0, 2.0, and 3.1, it's likely that the 5% figure that Turmell estimated is even on the high side. But I believe these rare versions of the game are out there somewhere, they just haven't been found yet. They might be collecting dust in some owner's basement, or they might be in the corner of some rundown laundromat. There might even be one near you. So, if the cheerleaders are in some rare version of the game, is there any way for us to know what the code to play as them would actually be? Well, I think we can at least come to a pretty good estimation. Most secret characters followed a standard format. For example, Turmel's real initials MJT and his real birthday, March 22nd, were used to unlock him, but some characters didn't quite follow this format. Sal DeVita, for example, just used his first name Sal for his initials, but we know the cheerleaders were played by Carrie Hoskins and Lorraine Olivia, and as Playboy models, they are public figures and there is some information available on them out there. For example, Carrie Hoskins' Wikipedia page lists her full name as Carrie Ann Hoskins, and her birthday is February 20th. Lorraine Olivia's birthday is also February 20th, ironically enough, but I can't find any information on what her middle initial would be. There are some other complicating factors as well. I've seen Carrie Hoskins' name listed as Carrie Kendall Hoskins on some websites, but this could have just been some kind of modeling name. And actually both characters were in early versions of NBA Jam Tournament Edition, and they were removed along with Sub-Zero and many of the other secret characters. And in that game, Carrie's initials were KER and her birthday was listed as October 10th. Lorraine was also in Tournament Edition and her initials were LOR and her birthday was listed as February 20th. It's interesting that they changed Carrie's birthday in that game. Maybe they didn't want two secret characters to have the same birthday. Other secret characters such as Mark Turmel, Air Morris, Carlton, Tony Goski, and others who were present in the first NBA Jam and also in Tournament Edition retained their same codes. So, most likely the cheerleaders would use their NBA Jam Tournament Edition codes, but if not, some combination of their real-life information mentioned earlier should work. So for now, that's as far as we can go on this mystery. I am convinced now, though, that the cheerleaders are real and that they are present in some versions of the game. So if you have an NBA Jam machine, or if you know where one is, try the codes we talked about, or just check the version number. You can actually see it flash when the game first boots up. And if you have a version that's more recent than 3.1, let me know in the comments. You might just have something extremely rare on your hands. So, for now, this is Dustin from Gaming Cold Case. If you have any cold cases you would like me to investigate, let me know in the comments also. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. And for now, I will turn you back to your normally scheduled Geeksation programming.